Ready to go.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Of course, you know me. My name is Dr. Keith McNally. This is the Envision Speaker Series. I'm here with Malcolm Newstetter and Tommy Geary. And today's conversation is going to be about partnerships, specifically around marriage, because marriage, many people enter into marriage with the intention of it actually working. And so, even though statistics work against us, that means that when we go into it and while we're into it, those are two different ideas. And so we need to strategize how we do this correctly. And part of that is because we value marriage, we value partnerships, we value being with somebody else. So at least those people who are entering into with the idea that this is a commitment, this is a teamwork, but somewhere along the line, things break down. And we're going to focus specifically on communication and breakdowns of communication within a partnership or a marriage. So I'm here again with Malka and Tommy, and they're going to add value to this conversation. So what I'm going to do now is start with Malka and say, who are you and what are you what are you doing here in my conversation and how are you going to add value to it?
Well, hi. Yeah, I'm Malka Newstetter, and I do family coaching, specifically around marriage and parenting. I work mostly with women, and I think that the value I can add to this conversation and to the conversations that I have with women center around the shift from I'm not happy because he to when he does or doesn't do that thing, I am unhappy, and helping the woman focus on the second part of that and not the first part, because only you, the unhappy person, can make that transition from unhappy to happy, from unfulfilled to fulfilled. And as long as I insist that that has to come from outside me, from my partner or from anybody else, I'm likely to stay feeling stuck, unhappy, and unfulfilled. So I want to help women to understand that regardless of what's going on with the other person, she can, you can, I can still find ways to move forward. And that's a very important part of my work.
Excellent. I love that. And so we're going to dive into that. Tommy, welcome to the conversation. Who are you?
Thank you, Dr. Keith. Pumped to be here. I'm Tommy Geary, and yeah, I'm a men's coach, a couples coach. Recently got into it, and yeah, I guess my journey in my marriage really is the value that I bring and my evolution from being a college football player, snowboarder, not life coachy person to being in a marriage and taking that commitment, like you were saying, Dr. Keith, to be in a partnership and be honest with myself enough that I have shortcomings, that I have blind spots. And uh, I think the biggest thing that I can bring of value is I used to yell and I used to argue with my wife. And I still yell sometimes, but we don't argue anymore. We have conflict and we have discussions, but arguments are gone. And I think we'll talk more about that. But, my value is I've gone through it and now I coach men mostly. Malka coaches women mostly. I coach couples because my wife and I coach couples together. And yeah, so I've seen it. I see it in a lot of the guys that I coach, and I'm here.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. And so I want to go back to my original statement because maybe it was made with assumptions. That and assumptions are good because I'm a doctor and doctors make a lot of assumptions. We have to move forward with an idea, a theory in order to make sense of it and then try to solve it. And so was I right in saying that for those who are doing it intentionally, are doing it with the idea that this is going to be a long-lasting thing, a team thing, and that's really important for the two people entering into the marital relationship. What are your ideas upon that about that? And I don't care who goes first.
I could dive in. Yes, I think everyone goes. I mean, I'm going to make a broad assumption also. Everyone goes into a marriage assuming this is going to be a lifelong thing till death do us part. And the underlying assumptions, like what does a partnership mean? I think it depends on the person. I probably have a different intention of what a partnership means today when I have kids, when I have my business that I run with my wife than when we were 28 and had no kids and were snowboarding and backpacking every weekend because we had all the time in the world. So that I guess my assumption then was like, oh, I got a partner that's fun and she's my best friend and we're going to do cool things together. And that's still there today. But there's also this navigating of logistics of running a household and how do we want to parent our kids. And before I went into marriage, we didn't think about what those conversations were going to look like. So a lot has shifted, always with that assumption that we're going to be together forever. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
So I'll build on what Tommy said. I completely agree. If not all, then the vast majority of people, that I can tell who get married expect it to work. They want it to work. They do dream of staying together until death do them part. Um, Many people do come into it today with a fear in the background, but maybe it won't, right? When I meet with people for pre-marriage classes, one of the big questions is, what do I do so that doesn't happen to us? We don't want to become part of the divorce statistics. Can you teach us, what to do so that we'll beat the odds. We will be happily married, forever. Um, and I think one important thing that we need to know and maybe to share with the younger people in our lives is that you you can't be prepared for everything. Like preparedness is good to a certain level, but nobody actually knows how their life is going to go, right? And it is going to be in the moments of something unexpected or even something expected but that we've never done before, like having your first child. um, there is no way to be completely prepared for that. And there has to be a lot of trust in between the partners that as we jump into this new thing, whether it's a child or a mortgage or a relocation, right? It could be something that we choose, or it could be something that totally unexpected, right? Somebody's mom dies, or somebody loses a job that they didn't want to lose, or there's, a health crisis of one of the partners or of a child, God forbid. You know, so preparedness is good to a certain level, but more important, I think, than the like psychological or intellectual preparation is really building a firm sense of trust that when things do go off the rails, which they are going to for somebody sooner or later, just because that's the way life is, it doesn't necessarily mean you did something wrong. Life just brings us unexpected things, or things are more difficult than we expected them to be. To trust that we're going to have each other's back, to trust that we're going to find a way to get through it together, that if we don't immediately understand each other, instead of freaking out, we're going to go, this is really difficult for me. Can we talk about it? Maybe we can get some third party to help us through this. I really want to get through this with you. And right now, it's feeling pretty scary, right? And the ability to trust the other person when that kind of thing happens, I think, is maybe the most important element in a partnership.
I like that. And so life life is life. And so we recognize the challenges and difficulties that life, even unexpectedly, is going to throw at us. So with the intention or with our target, because we're going to take our audience now on a journey, we want to tell them or show them that if our goal is to be together and find a way of staying together, we need to do it in a very healthy, holistic, very intentional way. Oftentimes, and I like the fact that Tommy said, with him and his wife, the conversations shifted, the conversations changed. And so I want to focus a lot of our time together on just that, on communication and conversation. And so in order for two people to kind of build that relationship that's going to last, quite frankly, a lifetime or as long as they both shall live, as both of you have said, they need to have the right kind of conversations. They need to use the right way of talking to each other. And in our planning session, Malka, you used the word energy, and I think that's going to be applicable in our conversation today. So with that being as it is, how do we, focus our energies on having the right conversations? Can we start there?
Sure, I'll jump in on that one.
Okay.
We overvalue and over prioritize in Western culture, use your words, verbal communication. Say the right thing. What do I say? How do I say it? It's always good to use your words, like say please and say thank you and express appreciation, but we don't pay enough attention to the fact that behind our words is energy, is how we feel when we say the thing. Like, um, trying to think, there's a lot of examples in Yiddish, especially, and also in Hebrew. I can't think of a good one in English, but like my mom would tell me stories about an older woman she knew who, when her child was misbehaving or when the mom would get like really angry, she would like scream at her, but the words she would say was, you should live long and prosper. You should always be healthy. Right? Like she didn't want to say anything. She didn't want to use not nice words, but her tone of voice conveyed to the child that he was in trouble. Right. So that's one way, but that's easier for us to understand. The opposite is also true. I could say, "Oh, honey, would you please take down the trash?" Right. And I could say it really nicely and I could use a calm tone of voice, but if what I'm really thinking is, you never take down the trash. And I've asked you a million times. And even if I don't say those words, if that's really how I feel, he's gonna figure it out. Like he's gonna get that non that energy is gonna come across. He's gonna feel it. Like any of us have gone into a room, whether it's a job interview or a party or a club or um, worship or any kind of situation where you walk into a room and you immediately get a sense of the energy in the room. Like, is this a happy place? Is this a serious place? Am I welcome? How do I feel about the crowd here? There's a lot of energy that we pick up on as human beings that's under just words. So when people say, well, when women say to me, well, but I've told him so many times, or but I've asked nicely, right? I want to try to get her to discuss with me not what she said, but how she was feeling when she said it. What energy was she embodying or occupying when she said whatever it is, because usually we can uncover a story that she has about who her partner is, whether or not he really cares for her, whether he's looking after her, whether he's on her side, whether he's backing her up, whether he understands her. There's a story there. And we need to work not just with the externals of the words. Like I can't just give her a script to read and that's going to make everything better. We need to understand what's going on in her mind and in her heart when she says that thing and address that energy and address that story. And then she's not going to need a script. Then everything is going to come out in a way that's much more in a more deeply actually authentically respectful of the person that she's talking to. And he's going to pick up on that. And when we feel disrespected, we're always going to be defensive, no matter what words the other person use. And when we feel respected and seen, then we're much more likely um, to want to make the other person happy, to want to take the other person's wishes into consideration. So I think that encouraging our clients and ourselves to pay attention not just to what we say and how we act, but how we're thinking and feeling before we say the things is a huge part of helping people to communicate better.
Wow.
Yeah, I the example that I comes to mind for me is I'm sorry. We can say I'm sorry, but do we really feel sorry? I know for me, sometimes I'll say I'm sorry just because I want the conversation to be over. And my wife feels that. My wife understands that. And she'll say, like, I don't want to hear I'm sorry. And in our relationship evolution, when I do like before, when I would say that, I would like just say, no, I am sorry, and try to really explain myself that I'm sorry. Now, if I do that and try to end the conversation with I'm sorry, she's like, that's not what I want to hear. I can pause and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I was just trying to get the conversation over because I'm uncomfortable with this conversation. And that uncomfortable energy is coming through. Why do I want to leave this conversation so quickly? And take a breath into that and open up and be like, oh, she's asking me, if we use Malka's example, to take out the trash. This isn't my example anymore. And I'm saying I'm sorry because I just want the conversation to be over. But really, why I'm uncomfortable is because I feel like I'm doing a lot around the house. And this is one more thing that I'm like, come on, like enough is enough. And I don't want to get into a fight about this. But like that feeling's under that. That's the discomfort that I feel like I'm not doing enough. And this is like, I'm getting called out. So I want to run away. And that energy, like that's I guess the energy that I'm coming from when we can shift and be like, acknowledge that in the moment and be like, hey, I hear you, you want me to take out the trash right now. I'm telling myself that like you're telling me I'm not doing enough, and I know that's not exactly what you're saying, but that's how I feel right now, and see where the conversation goes from there. I don't know where it goes. It's up to the other person if they want to receive that or not. But at least you're taking more responsibility for your energy and what you're doing instead of trying to sweep it under the rug.
So can we continue with that? So there's a lot here with the idea that we bring our energy to the relationship. We bring our energies to the marriage. We bring that, and it demonstrates through the words that we use, the effect of those words, in even our very presence, physical presence, closeness to one another. I think that if you say, yeah, I'm sorry, um, that emanates a lot of what you just said, Tommy, is that, maybe I just don't want to talk about this right now, or maybe I, don't have the words, or I know if I say certain things, that's just going to ignite something else from your wife, and so you don't want to go in that direction. So how much responsibility then does each person in the relationship in the marriage have, to recognize, and I think I should start there, to recognize that they bring energy with them into the relationship and into communication and into conversation. Because quite frankly, up until rather recently, and I'm a half a century old and then some, I'm really just learning this, within the past 2 to 3 years myself. Uh, Being more conscious and aware of this idea.
Yeah, I there is so much energy in a relationship. So I do want to say that like when there is defensive energy or high energy and the loving energy isn't there, that's totally normal and it's part of a relationship and navigating two people in a household that are going through life and all these different responsibilities. There's like, it means a lot to us. So, of course, it's energized. The responsibility is recognizing that your energy is your responsibility and the other person's energy is their responsibility. And although it can feel like when our partner is pissed off that it can make us pissed off, that's where we take responsibility and be like, no, I'm going to let my partner be pissed off right now. And I'm going to choose not to be happy go lucky and like, yay, excited, but like, I'm going to choose to disarm myself. I'm going to choose not to get angry and turn this and escalate it into a fight. And yeah, I think that's the responsibility. I could kind of go on about that, but I did want to say that like the energy's there. Like the energy's there, and we get caught up in not understanding that we have like a we're getting pretty woo here, but we have this energetic field inside of us that's ours, and it can feel like other people's energy are penetrating ours, and we can, you know, feel that and not respond to it in a quick manner.
I would definitely endorse that. I would say that each partner has 100% responsibility for their own behavior and for how we each choose to respond to a situation and to each other. Um, Tommy and I are not making this stuff up. Viktor Frankl said it a long time ago, and other great thinkers and writers have also um, been aware been aware of the great power that is in the pause between experiencing something and responding to it. And the more self-aware and intentional we become in that space that only we can create. Oh, he said the thing, he did the thing, he didn't do the thing. There's that like instinctual, immediate emotional response that I feel. But before I act on it, I can pause and go, why don't I think about that for a minute? Where is his behavior meeting my expectations, my dreams, my desires, my frustrations? And I think something very meaningful can happen in those experiences over time where I stop seeing myself in a childish way, like I'm the center of the universe and everything revolves around me and everything has to work out nicely for me. And if he isn't doing the things that make me feel wonderful, then he's the problem and it needs to change, blah, blah, blah. I would say that it's wrong. I would just say that it's childish. It's a very immature way of looking at myself and looking at the world and looking at the other people in my world and my life. And the adult version, the mature version, the let's call it enlightened version is I chose to enter a committed relationship with this other person. We are equals. We are partners. We are in this thing together. We're on a team together, but we are separate and different, and we will always be separate and different. And instead of me looking down on him and saying, you gotta fix whatever it is because I need you to be different, I can acknowledge the dignity and the autonomy and the wonderfulness of this other person who is so different from me and switch from, let's call it judgment to curiosity. Instead of going like, how could you do that? Or why do you do that? Or why don't you do that? Right? It's very critical. It's very judgy. It assumes that there is a right way to do things. And of course, it's my way. And then his way is not. So he's like, not, he's not on the right program, right? I could notice that I'm feeling that way and then go, well, but he's a good person. Or like I married him because I like him. I think he's a good person. He has all these good qualities. Like maybe I should ask him why he thinks that's a good idea, you know? And then just to go back to the energy thing, if I'm gonna ask him, I definitely should check in with my energy first and find that if I'm just doing that as a trick, or if I really am curious about why he sees the situation so differently than I do, or why he thinks that a totally different course of action is a good idea than what I thought, right? So the shift from childishness, which goes together with insecurity and judgment and criticism, to an adult relationship, which comes with respect and trust and curiosity, I think that's not something we do once. That's something we're doing our whole lives together so that our insecurity is getting smaller and our trust and respect is getting bigger. And that's just something that we are kind of like swimming through together in life. And the more we put into that, the better our communication is going to be.
Can I say something
Yeah,
about
yeah, go ahead.
childhood and adulthood? And the school that I was certified in, and Malco was certified also, frames it up as emotional childhood and emotional adulthood. And I was just talking about this with a guy because his wife was having her 40th birthday and they had been celebrating kind of all week, and there were people coming over that night, and he walked in, it was the middle of the workday, and she was decorating for the party. And she kind of said with some energy, I guess I'm going to decorate by myself. And right in that moment, she was acting from emotional childhood. And guys do it probably more than girls, but this is just the example in this case. Uh, and he took it as a jab, as a shot, and he just said okay and walked away and went back to his office and went to work. And that's fine. He could act that way, but we were coaching on it. And is that how he wanted to show up? And he was like, no, not really. I would have wanted to have a conversation about it. And we like think about our spouse a little. And like Malka said, we turn that she's judging me, she's taking a shot at me to curiosity. And it's like, oh, okay, what was my wife feeling at that moment? Like I was telling myself I had done enough this week. We celebrated enough, but what was she feeling? Oh, she's turning 40. Maybe she's feeling sad about it. Maybe she's not like feeling great about where she's at in life at 40. Oh, I can open up to that. I can see her as the person that she is. And if I thought that, I could stick around and have a conversation. I could, when she says that and she takes that tone, instead of taking it personally, I could be curious and be like, hey, like, I don't want you to decorate by yourself. I'm happy to hang out and help you for a little bit if you want. Like, whatever that is, it's a different conversation, it's a different energy. And, going to the partnership, like, you're in it together. She's in a sad place. Like, you're like, let's be in the sad place together for a while. Maybe it sucks getting older, whatever.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing to that, which is beautiful. What you said, that in a relationship that we're hoping is going to last for our whole life together, there can be a lot of room for overlooking the other person's imperfections and expecting them to do the same for us. And, even for forgiveness, if that's what's called for. So, and the really nice thing about your example is that either one of them could have done something differently. Like it doesn't matter which one starts. She could have invited him in a more respectful, inviting way. He could have responded to her jab differently. Like it doesn't matter who starts. Anybody, either one of them at any time can be the one to offer the different kind of energy. Instead of responding with sad or jab or criticism, whatever, either one at any time can offer grace energy, forgiving energy, understanding energy, patient energy. And when one person does that, it opens up room for the other one to respond in kind.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm hearing, and I like where this conversation is going. And those for the audience, you know that my Envision Speaker Series conversations are typically planned, but not scripted. So this is kind of going in a different direction than we initially planned. But the three things that I'm hearing right now is an emphasis on energy, and whether you call it woo or not, I mean, it's just part of who we are. And so I do appreciate that. Energy. Then there's self-reflection. So this is also what's being communicated here in our conversation. There needs to be a an emphasis, I guess, as coaches when you work with your clients, your specific niche is that there has to be this communication that you need to be more self-reflective. You need to be more self-aware, self-conscious, not in a negative way, but just an idea that, you need to be part responsible. You are part responsible about what's going on in the dynamic here. So that's two things. And then the other thing, Malka, you mentioned pause. There has to be a time where you're not just knee-jerk responding, knee-jerk reaction to a situation. Um, as adults, we get to pause. Kids may not have the discipline to do that. Our children may not have the discipline to do that, some better than others. But as adults, we get to pause. We get to pause, reflect, think, and analyze. Now, I'm not saying you could, meditate on it for 10 hours. I'm just saying that, 30 seconds, we got a brain that works. Let's use that 30 seconds to evaluate what's going on. And then fourth, and so three and now four, there's an idea that there is somebody else in this dynamic. So it's not just about, okay, well, I need to reflect, I need to be aware, I need to pause, I have energy bringing into the situation. You have to turn it all around because your partner right in front of you is dealing with those same three things. And they may not be dealing with the fourth. May not be seeing the other person, which is you now. So address that, please. How do we need to think about the idea that there is another whole individual? And both of you have already teased on this idea. There's another whole individual in this situation, this dynamic.
I,
How does it
I
work?
mean, first thing that comes up for me is we have been focusing on that fourth person most of the time. We have been wanting them to act differently, for them to,
But we're using that as a blame, not
right.
as a construction.
Oh, yeah, because we can't control them, right? We think if we can control them and our partner acts differently, then we'll feel better. Right? If she just didn't ask me to take the garbage out again, then life would be easier and I would get to feel better. So yeah, the first three things, your energy, your reflection. I don't remember what the
Your
third one was.
pause. You get to
Your
pause.
pause. Yeah, your pause. It's probably pause, reflection,
I got
and
him out of sequence.
or pause, energy, reflection, right? No, maybe you're right. Energy. You notice yourself getting worked up. You notice yourself being on the defense. Take a breath, take a step back. Someone just told me this the other day, like physically, when you feel defensive, take a step or two back, and it just like opens you up a little bit more. And the reflection, I mean, the guys that I work with, and Malka, you can say what you think about the women. Like when guys are in a conversation with their partner and they're silent and they shut down, and my wife used to say, like, say something, like, tell me what you're thinking. And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm thinking. I've never looked at my thoughts before. I've never explored what the heck is going on. Like, how can I tell you if I don't even know what I'm thinking and feeling? So, yes, coaching is that space to be like, okay, had this argument a week ago, what was going on? And the cool thing about the human brain is that we can actually go and visualize in our brain what was happening, and we can bring up the scenario and what our wife said and how we felt and what we were thinking. And the reason we do that is because it's going to happen again. We're staying in this partnership till death do us part. And when we have the same arguments over and over, like, awesome, we can practice in the coaching session, reflect a little bit, and then next time maybe we do notice the anger come up and we do take a breath instead, and we do realize that, oh, my pattern of yelling to get my point across is coming up because my parents used to yell, and that's how anger was demonstrated for me. It's not an overnight thing. I've had guys be like, can you send me the recording of this session? Can you send me the transcript just so I can send it to my wife so she understands what's going on in my head? Like, we can be working on this in the session, but in the moment, it takes practice.
It does definitely take practice. I think practice is a great word also to remember. Practice is something that we do over and over and over again. And also we call it a practice, like a thing that is like a ritual in our lives that we're always referring to and getting better at and deepening our connection to. And practice is a great word. Um, I think from the growth that I've seen in my marriage and also with my clients, that when you care enough and you work hard enough at taking responsibility for me, what I saw happened is I became, it became less important to me that my husband respond the way I like. Like a lot of women, I love to talk. I could talk forever, you know. And I laughed one time. I said, because I'll also be like, it's your turn to say something now. Could you say something? Like I would, and he's like, no, but I'm perfectly happy listening. I'm like, okay, but
I need you
there's
to
two of
say
us,
something.
like say something, you know. But in the beginning it was scary, and then later it became like funny, and then ultimately it just became a space where I could be like, he doesn't need to say anything because he's very happy listening to me, and I can also be very happy that he's listening to me. And do I really need him to say something, or can I just be happy that we're together and that I'm sharing what I want to share and he's accepting it and he's listening? And might that be enough? Right? And to move from just like tolerating the other person's difference to being able to really appreciate it and go like, he's not just like a checklist. He's not just the good parts only or the parts that I like. Like he's a whole person. And part of the person are the things that I like about him, the things that inspire me, the things that attracted me to him in the first place, the things that made me want to marry him in the first place. And then all those other things I might have discovered along the way that I didn't know about until we were already like living together for so many years and had kids together. And I'd be like, but they're just part of the same person who I love and like and trust and respect. So maybe it's just okay. You know, maybe they don't need to change. And I think that the more deeply a partner, whether it's the man or the woman, feels accepted, the more they open up to wanting to understand what you want from them and to give it to you freely as best as they can, which might not ever actually be the way you imagined, but it wasn't their job to be who you imagined. It's their job to be them as truly as they can. And I feel like the more we experience real trust and acceptance from our partner, the safer we feel. And then the more open we are to saying, what can I do for them? You know, what might make them happy? Which, as long as we're like feeling worked up about ourselves, it's hard to open up to that.
So in this conversation, we took our audience through a journey, and we recognize that any marriage, any relationship, any committed relationship has challenges to it. And without a proper way of having a conversation, without a proper way of having real communication between those two people, things can break down rather easily and very detrimentally. And so we talked about you bring energy to the relationship. So recognizing that both good and bad, you can bring either and or both to the situation, to everyday situations. You also have to have a sense of self. You also have to have a sense of your awareness and a sense of your responsibility to the dynamic, to the two of you. And then in conversation and in life, you can kind of pause and, like Tommy said, step back. And if it says, take 2 steps back to go 3 steps forward, take those 2 steps back, observe, analyze, and consider your situation, consider the circumstances, consider the other person, and then bring that other person to the forefront. What do you think they're going through right now? What do you think they need right now? So, with all of that as part of this journey, the two of you, please, your expertise now on the table, give something to our audience that says it's going to be okay today. I'm going to leave you with something to do, to think about, to work through in order to make your part of the responsibility, your part of the relationship a bit better today. I
I
don't
thought
care
we
who
just
goes,
did that.
no, you're going to give them a to-do thing. When we
Yeah,
talk,
an
an
action. So
action,
the the action that I give in these kinds of situations is a check-in process. And the check-in process, it's 3 steps, and you can do it on your own, and you can practice outside, right? We're talking about practice outside of the conversations, but you can actually use it in the heated conversations. And that check-in process is you look at 3 things in your physical presence. So I would say microphone, photo, and the picture my daughter gave me. Right? That allows you to expand your view, right? That's the pause. And then the 3 things are physical, like my hands are cold, my jaw is tight, my shirt feels tight on my shoulders. 3 things you feel physically, and then 3 things you feel emotionally. Oh, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm sad, I'm anxious, I whatever those emotions are. That's your pause, that's your opening up. And when you can do that yourself, that'll slow you down so you show up in conversation. I like to take it a step further and do it with your partner. My wife and I do it almost all mornings at 9 a.m. We work together. So that's how we start our day. We both check in, and it gets you on the same page. It gets you understanding the other person a little. And yeah, I have a podcast on how to go through these steps. So if you replay this and listen, those are the steps. Breathe, try it out, see what it does for you, see what it does for your relationship.
I like that a lot because it's taking your mind off of whatever was triggering you and consciously putting it on something else. And that's fantastic. That will really help you to shift your energy, shift your perspective. That's a great tool. I'll offer something a little bit different, even though I really think your tool is fantastic. I think everybody should try it. Work with a journal. Women, especially, tend to be so entrenched in their story that they're not even aware of it as a story. Uh, they just think that it's true. Like whatever I think about my husband, that's who he is, right? He doesn't get me or he doesn't care or whatever. Take a notebook and every day write down at least one good thing about him. It doesn't have to be a thing that he did that day. Oh, today he took down the trash, although in a pinch that'll do. But like once upon a time, you loved this guy enough to want to marry him and imagine you were going to live together forever. How did you get so out of touch with looking at him that way and thinking about him that way? Like Tommy's tool shifts my mind from the triggering thing to other things, real specific physical things, objects and feelings. Um, I want to help her to let go of needing to fix the story, fix the husband, and start thinking about herself. How do I see my husband? What am I thinking about him? And to work every day on writing another good thing and another good thing and another good thing, because that is going to hopefully start generating warm, affectionate, interested, respectful energy towards him. And when my energy changes, then I'll be ready to address whatever the triggering thing was from a place of respect and dignity and without judgment and criticism, which just keep driving the defensive offensive cycle. So my suggestion would be work with a journal and start reminding yourself what's good about this person, because probably there's a lot and you've just lost touch with it. So get back in touch with it.
Love
Love
it.
it. Yeah, me too.
Perfect from both of you. Malka, Tommy, thank you for joining me on an episode of the Envision Speaker Series. For those of you who've been watching and listening, I'll see you next time. Take care.